Joining me now from Philadelphia is Neysun Mahboubi. He is with the University of Pennsylvania. He's a research scholar with the Center for the Study of Contemporary China. Talk to us about the importance of this anniversary. How do you see it?
Well, it's clearly an important political moment for the Communist Party generally and for Xi Jinping. In some ways, I think it's the kind of thing where we just have to get past it so that we can get back to ordinary politics, both domestic within China and in terms of international affairs. But it is a milestone, and so we have to spend, this amount of time focusing on it in the international press and of course in terms of commentary within China. But beyond that, I think my main thought is it'd be nice to get past it so we can get back to more ordinary politics, both domestic and international.
Yeah, when you look back on the history of the party, it started very small 100 years ago. Talk to us about the strides the country's seen in the last 100 years. I imagine one of the items would be this effort to reduce poverty in the country.
Well, certainly this last 100 years of Chinese history has been a very tumultuous one. I mean, that's what's driven me to be so interested in China. The amount of historical drama that's occurred within China over the past 100 years is really remarkable. And in the course of that time, the Communist Party's rise to power and then its stewardship of China since 1949 has been, I would say, not always smooth sailing. There have been some things that have gone quite wrong and some things that have gone quite well. To the extent that the Communist Party has done better in at least the last 40 years after the Cultural Revolution, the Great Leap Forward, those types of things, I think it's had to do with a greater degree of adaptability, greater degree of pragmatism, and those, I think, are the hallmarks of what have made the Communist Party successful over the past 40 years.
Looking ahead, where is China headed? What are the economic goals moving forward? And this friction between the U.S. and China, you were talking about, getting past this. Where do you see that playing into all of this?
I mean, so that's going to be something that's going to be determined in both capitals, in both Beijing and Washington. My own hope, and I think the hope of some others, is that the two countries will realize that despite a number of differences, there are still some commonalities, that there are some shared interests, especially in global stability and in areas of potential cooperation, whether it has to do with health or climate. But for that to happen, for that more positive, collaborative framework to develop, I think it's going to be necessary to have steps in both Beijing and Washington, which neither one has publicly indicated they're ready for right now. But the scope of global challenges are so great that hope springs eternal that both capitals will eventually come back to that kind of realization.
Yeah, you were talking about challenges, and you kind of beat me to the punch. Climate change, obviously not just threatening China, but the world. What do you see China's role on that moving forward?
Well, certainly the commitments that have been announced recently about reducing coal emissions are very promising. And I think that's the kind of thing that can be, an area where both sides can continue to push the ball forward. But probably we're at a point with climate change that we need more than simply the reduction in coal emissions. We need the development of new technologies, solar, things like that. And that's an area that clearly the U.S. and China can work together to develop those technologies, not to set up barriers to the components necessary for those technologies. And that may be the only path forward if we do want to get past this climate crisis, which I think if anyone's paying attention to the news these days will recognize is becoming more and more acute by the day.
Yeah, and one final question before I let you go. We're talking about climate. We think about the Paris Agreement, Obama and Xi coming together, really kind of driving the world in that direction. Glasgow just around the corner in November. What kind of arrangement do you see there with Biden and Xi, perhaps?
I can't predict, but certainly I think for Glasgow to be successful in broad terms, it will be necessary for the U.S. and China to reach some kind of agreement that they can then be leaders in the world in bringing the other countries along with them. It won't work if the two of the largest economies in the world are not on the same page on these issues.
Yeah, that's something we'll be watching. Thanks so much for your analysis. Always appreciate it.
Thank you.